Hi and welcome to this video of how not to make a resin table. It's funny really, but it actually turned out alright. Got a mate who said to me he wanted to build a resin table, and I thought, oh, never done it before, but yeah, let's have a go at it. But then he turns around and says, I want one of those tables where you set the table on fire and then put it in resin, which is a whole new ball game. And I've never touched resin in my life, so I've got no idea how it works and how to handle it, and so this is about as difficult as you can get. Like, you know, jumping into the Atlantic Ocean and learning how to swim. So anyway, I never say no. I thought, let's have a go at it. It's a bit of a challenge, and I cocked it up in loads of different ways, lots of mistakes, but I managed to correct everything. And the end result was stunning. It was a beautiful table, a little coffee table. And incidentally, it started off, it was going to be a desk, but the wood that we sort of put together was a bit too big for a desk. So the offcut became a coffee table. And we thought we'll experiment making a tiny little table first before we get onto the big desk as such. So that's the table that I videoed. I hope you enjoy this video and don't slag me off too much in the comments. So in this project we've decided to build ourselves a resin table which is going to be fired and burnt and then coated in resin. The idea is we want this effect on the whole of this table. So what we've done is I don't know what size these bits of wood are. They're about sort of 75 by about 40. Glued them together, had them all clamped. They've been clamped for a few days now, and which is more than enough. And the next stage is to get this table outside, burn it, and give it a first coat of resin before we create a mould to put it into. I've coated the whole table, the whole tabletop with one coat of this sealer, or the resin coat. Now that's just sucked it right in. I've done all the edges as well. So this is the underside, and the reason why I wasn't going to do the underside, but the reason why it was because when I put it in there yesterday, all bits were crumbling off, and we don't want those bits and pieces floating up and spoiling the clear area of our table. So that's that done. Right, I've cleaned up the mould, hoovered it all out, and used a damp rag to make sure that there's no bits and pieces in there. And I've used the only silicone I had handy was some black silicone, and gone round all the edges and smoothed that all out with my finger too. So the next stage is the burnt tabletop has been dropped in and squared off so that all the gaps look as pretty even as I can get them. Now here we go. Let's do this. You know what? This ain't going far. In an ideal world, I'd like to pour it all in one go. And be done with, but I'm worried about the table floating. and there it goes, it's floating. What I didn't want. So I'm going to have to think of a way to solve this problem. It's floating a lot. Right, so the second pour made the little table float, which is not what we wanted at all. And I've had to resort to sticking some bits of wood wrapped in plastic and trying to sink the table at least down to a level where when I take these things off they may not leave such a terrible mark. But other than that, when you look at it's hard to see with all the shadows, but there is real depth in that. So tomorrow when I do the final pour, that's going to look absolutely stunning. I've just mixed up the second batch. This is now overnight, and most of the bubbles have disappeared. Some have stayed round the edges, in particular where they stayed below the surface. I was up until 11 o'clock last night burning the bubbles out, so it's not going to be a perfect finish, but for the first ever table, and we picked the most complicated thing to do, I think it will turn out okay-ish. Lots of mistakes made here, I'm sure. Certainly I've learnt a few lessons on this one. Perhaps the biggest lesson is I should have picked an easier project for a first resin table. It's quite satisfying to watch as you burn the bubbles and you've got just really clear resin. Hopefully on this layer I won't be getting any more bubbles soaking out from the wood. Trouble with burnt wood is it becomes so porous, it's literally like a sponge and it's constantly releasing air. But which is why this is like a really hard project for a first timer like me. Should have did a paperweight instead. So hard to see with all the reflections going on, but a few bubbles forming again, but it's a really good finish. This layer is better than the previous layer, definitely. As I say, you know what? Some of those bubbles there could become a feature. It's been 5 days now since we poured this, and I would say this is, and I'm trying to see if I can leave a nail print in this anywhere. I'd say this is ready now for the mould to come off. So I think that's what I'll be doing today. First step, unscrew the mould. So here it is with the glass, with the mould off.